So I think a common theme today for everybody you guys have talked about is that self-preservation wasn't their first instinct. I mean, obviously their job was very important to them, their family was very important to them. I mean, when you think of the war fighter today and the sacrifices they have to make, you know, their family, their kids, I mean, that's quite the toll that they take. I mean, even, you know, the guys that are still deployed now, I mean, when you think about what these guys also have sacrificed and their families that are left behind, I mean, that's pretty impactful and quite the sacrifice that they've made. I mean, obviously, some of you are close to their families too. You must see what they're having to go through.
When a soldier is killed in combat, I mean, it affects not just the military unit, not just their platoon or team. It affects the family, obviously, and you know the wives and the children are kind of left to pick up the pieces, even after the funeral. After you know the funeral, the mourning, and everything else, you know, there's a very personal reaction that has to happen, and it happens quietly behind closed doors, and something that they have to deal with in their own way and come to terms with. Part of I think it's very easy for, obviously not the families, but for us as soldiers, over the course of over a decade of war now, to start to get jaded as the names come in every day, every week, and the faces. And unless you knew the person on a personal level, it's hard to feel any kind of personal loss. And I liken it to when the Battle of Mogadishu happened in 1993, and the soldiers there were killed. I think the entire Ranger Regiment, and I think the entire military felt that, like on a personal level. But as over a decade of wars happened, it's been very easy for us to get kind of, I don't want to say callous. We remember these guys, we feel for them, we feel for their families, but the effect isn't the same. And I think Veterans Day is a good time where you're preoccupied day to day with doing your job. The average American is preoccupied with their job as well and their family. But Veterans Day is kind of a time when you take a step back and just reflect on those guys and those names and those people and who they were, and just remember them and think about them a little bit.
But they were real people, like the the guys you discussed today, with people, families that they also left behind.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think I mean there's a certain point, I think all of us know that point where even if you were deploying, even if you were doing the job, there was that moment that it became personal because you lost that first guy you had a connection with. And before that, like Jack said, I'm not discounting any loss of life, but it's almost, you don't have that personal connection. And that first person that passes that you knew, all of a sudden it becomes personal and it becomes real. And I think it kind of shifts your focus a bit.
Yeah, those first guys who were killed in the War on Terror, Mike Spann with the CIA, and our guys who were killed in the Ranger Regiment, Cross, Commons. Some of those early casualties we took, I think, were felt harder than some of the subsequent ones, just because the people get numb to it. It's a natural human reaction.
No, I mean, I guess on the flip side, I think we all need to realize that every soldier, sailor, Marine, airman that has come home with a flag over their casket, every one of them has people like us that can sit around and tell stories the same as we have told stories about this. So I think, though we don't have a personal connection with them, someone does, and they affected lives and families. And I also think the unsung heroes of a decade of war are the wives and the husbands and the moms and the dads and the brothers and sisters that the media doesn't talk about. No one talks about, because they weren't the heroes. But I mean, think about the sacrifices they make, whether their son or daughter or husband or wife comes back home, back home to rejoin their family, or doesn't make it back home. There's still, those sacrifices are unbelievable. And I think really that family structure has more to do with the success of our warfighter than really a lot of people give them credit for. I mean, if you don't have support at home and you don't have that structure and that support, I think it's very hard to go do your job effectively when you're worried about what's happening on the home front.
It's like Dan said earlier, the support, on Veterans Day, it's a great time to remember and honor our veterans, but the support matters. And what Dan said, people coming up and thanking us for our service or thanking a veteran or a warfighter for a service. It's like, thanking the American public back for their support, because it does matter. And the families, I can't say enough about how incredible these families have been, and the wives. We had Chris Hagerman, who's a Navy SEAL writer on SOFREP. His wife wrote this amazing article about what it's like to be a SEAL's wife, and and she takes it step by step, through the first time her husband went on a training trip, the first time he went on a combat deployment, the first time she went to a funeral. It's just like you really get a sense of how much these families, from the wives and the children, how much they've sacrificed and continue to sacrifice on a daily basis to support these guys, and men and women. So I just think they're definitely in the hero category, in my mind.
It's almost like they should, for a moment, redefine what the term veteran means.
Mm-hmm.
It's not just the military person who goes into harm's way. It's the people they leave behind at home should be included as a veteran. It should be those unsung heroes who are nameless and faceless, who go out on a daily basis, whether it's 9/11 or some other time, and who lose their lives, and you don't see it on the media, or you don't hear it talked about even in dark, secluded rooms. It should include all of those people. And I think this Veterans Day, we should pay particular attention to that and honor all those.